2024, it's not that long away. That's going to see our next general election. Before that, however, there is quite a big electoral mountain to climb, and it relates to incorporating independent candidates into the system at a national and provincial level. Of course, at local government level, we do see this already, and we're seeing signs that these independent candidates at that level can make quite a unique contribution. But let's look at the national picture now. Mmusi Maimane is a former DA leader who left to become part of the One South Africa movement, which aims to encourage and support independent candidates in the electoral system. And he joins us now. Mmusi, thank you so much for your time. So on Friday, the Constitutional Court gave Parliament an extension. They'd been given 2 years since the original ruling, which was in 2020, June the 10th, to change the laws to allow for independent candidates at national and provincial level. There's 6 months now. They've got an extension for 6 months to actually complete this process. There is a bill that has been tabled. Have you seen the bill? Is the bill heading in the right direction? Talk to me about just how difficult the next 6 months might be.
Good evening, Sally, and good evening to fellow South Africans. I think none of us can deny the fact that the bill that has been tabled before us, whilst maybe seen compliant, is not fulfilling of the constitutional mandate that will ensure that actually citizens get accountability. It fails to ensure that there's a constituency-based model that means that for you and I, depending on where we live, we would be able to know who the member of parliament that represents us, someone who's able to tell us what's happening with our hospitals, what's happening with our police stations, what's happening with our schools, which are issues that are in fact of national competence, not at local government. And so, to me, I think granting them an additional 6 months is actually not an entirely complete picture, because actually in 3 months the bill has to be sent to the president for signature. And then if the president deems it challenging constitutionally, he can send it back to Parliament. So effectively, the bill as we have it now is the bill that's going to be signed on the 10th of December. So the extension is actually meaningless. And furthermore, it will be challenged in the Constitutional Court. And ultimately, I think it puts into challenge what happens in election 2024.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next question, what is going to happen in 2024? Is this bill going to be passed in any meaningful way for 2024? And if it is, would our elections look very different at a national level?
I certainly think that the best way we can advance change in this country is to actually restore democracy back to the people. Because at this point in time, political parties have almost captured the state for private and personal use. Now what we've got to do is ensure that ordinary citizens can participate in their democracy, that furthermore candidates need to come from their community so that people know them, and that when we go into 2024, an umbrella formation that sits and ensures that participation can be met in that manner and giving power back to the people can be achieved, which is what Judge Madlanga's constitutional ruling in 2 years ago was truly about. If we fail to do that, then I really would see that if the bill carries on the way it is, it will be challenged in the Constitutional Court, and we'll have to find a mechanism to either decide what the best electoral system for the country is prior to us all going to the polls, because I certainly cannot see this current bill being able to pass constitutional muster.
So my understanding, and I always have to remind myself before every election, but we've got a system of proportional representation, which essentially means that the ANC will have a list of, say, 300 people, and depending on how many seats they win, a proportion of that 300 list will get into Parliament. The constituency-based system is linked to specific areas, as you've explained. What did the Constitutional Court want and change and decree must happen? Is the bill fulfilling that currently?
Now, what the Constitutional Court wanted to achieve was to say public representation needs not only occur in the function of a political party. It then took a particular stitch, if you like, in the electoral law to say that what you need to do is ensure that independents are able to stand at national level. But that was a significant dynamic, because you can't simply say that an independent can stand on the ballot and then say they must compete on the same and equal footing as a political party. And then furthermore, in the constitutional principle of proportionality, as you've described, they do not participate. Because think about it, if you vote for an independent and then your vote, once cast, the proportional aspect of it gets allocated to political parties, you are in fact strengthening political parties. In fact, in real numbers, an independent to be able to qualify for parliament would have to get about 80,000 votes. And actually a political party would only need to get about 50 or 57,000 votes and potentially could get 2 seats after the proportional remainder of the votes are done. So the system is rigged towards political parties, and that's why the principle of fairness cannot be applied. So when it's said and done, we have to say, if we break the electoral system, at least on that principle, we really needed to have the courage and the bravery to reform the entire system so that we avoid things like state capture, where party dominance almost invariably delivers.
I've got to ask you a question with an eye to 2024, and certainly with a view on what's going on at the moment within the governing party. We know that President Cyril Ramaphosa is under a lot of pressure to talk about what happened at his farm in February 2020. There is talk within his party and beyond whether he should step aside. We know that the ANC is in a very weakened state, and there are many analysts who say they don't see the party actually getting a majority at all. How do you rate the ANC's chances if Ramaphosa does indeed end up stepping aside over this matter?
I think, Sally, it'd be good to say to the people of South Africa, with or without President Ramaphosa, the ANC will not get over 50%. And because actually citizens at home are worried they don't have jobs. As you've heard, the crime stats today, murder has gone up, and our education system isn't delivering the outcomes we need to have it deliver. So on the basis of those issues alone, it would be, in fact, citizens are feeling the pain. There's a rising cost of goods, and therefore there's a natural sense upon which the government has failed them. And broadly, I think the move that we're putting on to say, let's go across the country, identify crucial candidates and communities, will ensure that more votes are lost to the ANC, because whether the bill is passed in the form that it is now or not, there will be a reform in the Electoral Act and ultimately a new change in who the players are. And then lastly, I think that where President Ramaphosa faces a challenge is that he is confirming why the need. He feels confident to appear before the Integrity Committee of the ANC rather than the parliament where the people are represented, which tells me that the political parties do not fear the people. And I think 2024 must be a loud and a clear space for people to say, we want power back. And I'm certainly going to be working on a new formation with citizens to say, let's bring about that change so that we can ensure that the issues that I've raised earlier of the economy, on inflation, on crime, are dealt with in a manner that makes sure South Africa has a better future.
Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. Mmusi Maimane, leader of the One South Africa movement, which aims to encourage and support independent candidates in the electoral system. And of course, we know that a 6-month extension has been granted by the Constitutional Court to amend the Electoral Act to allow for independent candidates at provincial and national level. Mmusi Maimane arguing that it needs to be more open for independent candidates so they can compete on equal footing, moving more to a constituency system, he argues. Still to come on SA tonight.